Hello, welcome. I'm Chris Shelton, coming to you from a beautiful day in downtown Burbank near Los Angeles, California. Hollywood! It's here for Hollywood. Anyways, here we are with the DIY Home Remedies Guide for Health, Happiness, and Healing Transformation. Today, what I thought I'd talk about is something that affects millions of America around the world, and it's something that a lot of people don't like to talk about, and that is Candida. What is Candida? It's yeast. Ugh, who wants yeast unless you're making some bread? Anyways, Candida is a dysfunction of the spleen and the stomach system, and a lot of times the liver also will play a role in this too. And if you watch a lot of my videos, you actually will see that I talk about the liver a lot, I talk about the stomach and spleen a lot. And that is because as a result of the foods that we eat, the stress in our life, these two organ networks play a big role in a lot of the dysfunctions that we actually see in clinical practice. Yeast infections are as a result of the spleen being out of balance. I have clients that have been diagnosed with eye floaters, and they go and see certain doctors where they can do specialty tests, blood tests, and the blood tests say, well, you have high yeast. And so they put them on these really restrictive diets, put them on antibiotics and these other pills and medications. And unfortunately, that is not the problem. Eye floaters, which we'll do on a separate video, is as a result of the person being too angry, too controlling, too frustrated, and too much stress in their life. And as a result of that, this actually causes a dysfunction of the liver, which then, yes, will actually cause a dysfunction and a depletion of the spleen qi itself. But some of the foods that they recommend that a person not eat if they have eye floaters is sweet potatoes, for example. And sweet potatoes, acorn squash, butternut squash, pumpkin, all those things are so good for you, so especially to tonify the spleen. And when you have eye floaters, that's a totally different thing. So if you've been diagnosed with eye floaters and they put you on a restricted diet because they say you have yeast, I tend to disagree. Anyway, so what happens? How do we get this yeast inside of our body to begin with? So the spleen is responsible for so many things. And for many, many years, doctors were actually taking out the spleen, saying that it wasn't that important. As a result of that, then the pancreas and the liver had to pick up the function as a result of the spleen not being there. So what does the spleen do? Well, the spleen helps to hold things in place. And what does that mean? Well, it helps to hold the blood in the blood vessels. It also helps to hold your organs in place, and helps to hold other components of the body in place as well too. And so one of the things that the spleen does is it actually is responsible for the transformation and transportation of the food and the drink that we put into our body. So this goes into our stomach where it is rotten and ripened, and then from there it's transferred up to the spleen, to where then the spleen actually will transform it and transport it up to the chest to be helped to be made into blood. So if there's an impairment or a weakness of the spleen, then guess what? The clear fluids that is supposed to send up to the chest become impure, and that impure fluids actually becomes phlegm. So when we look at Candida could actually be looked at as a style of phlegm. When I first started studying Chinese medicine, I couldn't figure out how phlegm could possibly end up anywhere else inside your body besides your lungs and your nose. But then I started to recognize in watching these videos where they were talking about rheumatoid arthritis. And for example, Thomas Myers, I went with a workshop with him, Parisa and I did, and he had a video of somebody with rheumatoid arthritis. And the synovial fluids inside the joints of the body, when they are healthy, if you stick a scope inside there, Thomas Myers actually had a video. It wasn't his, it was somebody else's video, where they put the scope into the elbow of a gentleman who had no arthritis, and sure enough, the synovial fluids between the joint of the elbow actually looked like clear fluid, like clear snot, so to speak. And then they stuck a scope into the elbow joint of somebody who had rheumatoid arthritis, and sure enough, that synovial fluid is now white and sticky, looked like sticky white snot. So when the spleen is out of balance, it actually will turn into phlegm, or the base components of phlegm, which we see in arthritis. We actually will see also with cancer, fibroids, and tumors, and also too with yeast. So if you think about it, if fluids are impure, if you were to take a body of water, for example, where the lake wasn't moving or the water wasn't moving, what happens? Eventually bacteria starts to grow. So sure enough, this is what kind of happens inside the body. This bacteria starts to grow because the spleen's function of being able to transform that fluid up to the chest or between the skin and the muscles is now been impaired, and so it can't do it. So then the bacteria starts to develop. Because one of the other things that the spleen does is it also helps with our immune system too. So if your stomach and spleen is very strong, right now there's this coronavirus going around here in California. There's a nasty flu bug, both in the San Francisco Bay Area as well as here in Los Angeles, that's going around and it's really debilitating people. And if the stomach and spleen is actually strong, and if your upright chi, which is from your kidneys, is strong, guess what? You have a greater chance of not getting that flu, and also warding off the side effects of some of these viruses that are actually going around. So making sure that we tonify our stomach and spleen, making sure that we're taking care of it also in the way that we think. And what does that mean? Well, that means that the spleen is actually affected by the negative emotions of worry, over-intellectualizing, thinking too much, and reminiscing too much about the past or something that might be coming up here in the near future. So if you're adding things into your diet like over-the-counter medications, like pain medications, antibiotics, drinking too much wine, what else? Oh, adding too many carbs like breads, pastas, things that turn into sugar, eating sugar, like eating too much cold and raw food, eating that big bowl of ice cream every single night. I mean, every once in a while is okay, but every single night. These are the contributing factors that actually will weaken the spleen further. So if you combine the two, the emotional state as well as the diet, this actually creates a great environment for yeast to start to form, or for Candida to start to form. So how can we fix it? Well, Qigong is a really great practice that can actually help to tonify and help to build the strength of the stomach and the spleen Qi, as well as certain foods that we could eat too, like foods that are bland or naturally sweet in nature. So like I was talking about a little bit earlier, sweet potatoes. I'm a big fan of sweet potatoes, acorn squash, butternut squash, spaghetti squash, pumpkin, dill, cooking with dill. What else? A couple of figs every now and then, not too many figs, but a couple of figs. Oatmeal is also an earth food. Basmati rice in a small amounts. Lean meat is also an earth food that helps to tonify. So these are just some of the simple foods that we could add to our diet in order to help to nurture and send a little bit of LOVE to our spleen. Okay, so if we take care of ourselves as far as what we're eating, our mental, emotional state, and also the other thing too is our mindset while we're eating. Are we arguing while we eat? Are we having heated discussions? Are we standing while we're eating? Are we eating on the run? This also will create a dysfunction of the stomach and spleen. Click on the link below to see the full practice of the spleen cleansing exercise, as well as massaging the yang organs and the spleen healing sounds. So when we're doing the spleen cleansing exercise, what we're going to do is we're going to start off with our feet out about shoulders width apart. Our knees are slightly bent. Toes are pointing straight ahead. The tongue position is actually pointed down. So with our mouth closed, the tongue position's pointing down to connect the internal acupuncture channels for the stomach and the spleen. We're going to gently tuck the chin, pressing up at the crown point at the top of the head, also referred to as the Ba Hui, or Do 20. And the breath is long, steady, even, and deep into the lower dantian. So we're going to start off with pulling down the heavens 3 times, inhaling. Second time, just grounding yourself, connecting with Mother Earth, and the earth element actually represents the stomach and spleen, so the earth element itself. So after pulling down the heavens 3 times, one of the ways I like to do this a lot easier is that we actually will shift over to our left as though we're holding a ball. One arm in front, one arm in back, and I'm gently shifting my weight back and forth. And as I transfer this weight back and forth, I'm gazing at the palm of the hand that's in the front. Now notice how I'm twisting through the center, kind of like using this practice as like you're wringing out a towel, or a moist towel. Dampness. Yeah, the spleen doesn't like dampness. So that's the other thing too, is that the spleen does not like damp forming foods. It also does not like damp conditions. So if you're somebody who has chronic Candida and you live in a place like Half Moon Bay where it's foggy a lot of the times, that could also be a contributing factor to the formation of Candida, the formation of yeast. So I'm going to focus on things that create anxiety for me, worry, and then as I exhale, I'm going to allow that to leave out through the bottom of the feet like a dark cloud going several feet away from the body and deep into the ground. Now the positive virtue that brings forth is the virtue of centeredness, peace of mind, and serenity. So I'm going to come back to the center here, and I'm going to finish off by pulling down the heavens 3 times, inhaling. Just allowing ourselves to connect with Mother Earth, You can imagine the color yellow or orange actually filling up into the stomach and spleen, because those are the colors associated with the stomach and spleen. Okay, so after we pull down the heavens 3 times, the next practice I love to do is called massaging the yang organs or yang organs. And we're going to inhale, bring the arms up to the chest, and at about 70% force, we're going to allow the hands basically just to fall and to swing. Okay, 70% is just a rough number to give you an idea of how much emphasis on pushing the hands out to allow them to swing, but it's different for everybody. Notice how I'm rocking back and forth on the balls of the feet, also using that ground connection to be able to pull the golden light from the earth up into the yang organs. And so what are the yang organs? Well, the yang organs consist of the large and small intestine, the bladder, the gallbladder, and the stomach. So besides helping with candida and yeast infections, this practice is also really good for any kind of stomach or digestive issues. So you would inhale and imagine golden light coming up into the abdominal cavity, filling up into those organs that I just mentioned. Then as you exhale, any toxicity will leave out the feet deep into the ground as the hands swing down. Now you could do this for a couple minutes, or you could do this for 10 or 15 minutes. You could actually walk and do this practice as well too. And if you're walking and doing this practice, just be very mindful as you're taking each step to really pull in that earth's energy. Okay, great. So then I'm going to come back to the center. I'm going to finish off by pulling down the heavens. Okay. Just feel that connection. Feel the L-O-V-E, love in Hollywood. Inhale. Good. Feeling that connection. And then as I exhale, just allow myself to restore and harmonize. The last practice is really great because you can take this one with you anywhere, which is the healing sound for the spleen. And the healing sound is the sound of hu, like if you have an upset stomach. So it's spelled H-U-U, so hu. I'm going to go ahead and inhale into the left side of my body. And I'm going to imagine a yellow cloud filling up into that left side, focusing on the emotions of worry and anxiety. And then as I exhale, inhaling, and again inhaling. So I could do the sound audibly, or I could do the sound underneath my breath. So if I do it inaudibly, it'd be like this. And just allow for that worry, that anxiety to leave like a dark cloud going several feet away from the body and deep into the ground. And then once again, if you want to, you could finish off by pulling down the heavens 3 times. Okay, so here you have it, coming to you from a beautiful day in downtown Burbank, California, talking about the DIY Home Remedies Guide to Health, Happiness, and Healing Transformation. Today we're talking about Candida and yeast. And it's something that a lot of people don't like to talk about, but it really does affect a lot of people. Oh, by the way, yeast also shows up too as like fungus in the feet as well too. So yeast could show up in many different places inside the body. So what can we do? Number 1, let's look at our diet. Stop eating those carbs, stop eating those cold and raw foods, stop eating a lot of sugar. Stop drinking all that wine. If you're on antibiotics, try to get off those antibiotics if you can, and other medications if you can, because that also creates a dysfunction of the stomach and spleen. We also want to look at our mental, emotional state. Really be conscious of the worry that we have, the anxiety that we have. And even if we can't stop ourselves from going down the rabbit hole of worrying about something, at least check in with yourself. Say, you know what? I can't stop ruminating about this, but I'm going to be a watchful observer over what my mind is doing. That's being conscious of it. And even if you can't stop it, that's the first step in being aware and allowing your body to know, hey, I'm actually aware of what's going on. I can't stop the thought process, but at least I'm aware of what's happening. And the third and final thing, my favorite, is the Qigong practices for the stomach, spleen, and the pancreas, which is the spleen cleansing exercise, massaging the yang organs, as well as the spleen healing sound. Please click on the links below. Share this YouTube with your friends and family. Once again, we're making these videos every single week to allow you to become the best person that you could possibly be and to live the life that you deserve. I'm Chris Shelton, signing off from Los Angeles, California. Until next time, I will chi you later.